Yes, in hospital we have some important role in clinical trials. One of the most important, to be honest, is compounding in clinical trials where you are using oncology drugs. And this is very important because we are the only um, healthcare professionals able to make this in the proper way. The second point is that industry discovered that accountability of pharmacists is a much better than accountability of other healthcare professionals. And as you need a very, very strong documentation in clinical trials, we are more and more involved in documentation of clinical trials. And I think both are important points in our daily life in hospitals. We know by scientific evidence that a lot of clinical trials with negative outcome are not published. And this means that the perception by the public and by the health professional is a wrong one, because we have only positive outcomes but not a negative one. There are some scientific way, like the so-called funnel plot, to find out whether there is a problem or not. But we think that is very, very important in interest of the patients to have all the clinical outcome published, to have the right adjustment and judgment by health professional for the individual patient. Without negative, why didn't work in such a patient, we can't make a very good judgment of the situation of the patient. And we have to transfer evidence by trials in evidence for the patient. I think the major point is that clinical trials usually are assessing efficacy, which means how the drug works in a specific patient group, very well defined. That's unfortunately not the real patients we see every day. What we need is effectiveness, the result in real life situations. And what we see as a need is that clinical trials are more moving to effectiveness trials, not only in efficacy trials.
Hospital pharmacists can be involved in many aspects of clinical trials. First, in handling and managing investigational drugs, as well as patient information about the trial. On the other hand, they can be involved in the core business of the trial, handling medications and keeping double blinding and randomization. And in Italy, it's very common that they are also involved in the ethical committees as members, so in the evaluation process, and as well as in patient safety, and so in keeping pharmacovigilance during clinical trials. EAHP was involved in the shaping of the new clinical trials policy, and one of the main issues is transparency. A lot of research is being conducted, but we don't know the results. So we don't know if the new treatment is better or worse of the old one. And that's a very important information that we need to have in order to build the benefit-risk profile of a new drug. Moreover, another important issue is to promote non-for-profit research. That's a very key issue, especially for a particular population like the elderly, women and children, which are commonly outside clinical trials. And the third thing is patient safety, and again to make very clear rules about how to manage the safety profile during research.
We know that cancer care is affecting more than half elderly patients. So these are the patients that we will encounter more and more. And elderly patients have usually comorbidities. They have many drugs already prescribed. So that means that these patients may be at higher risk when they are given oncology drugs. But meanwhile, we know that these patients are not enough enrolled in clinical trials, and we really lack data from patients over 70, 75 years old. So probably one perspective would be that regulations try to favor more enrollment of elderly patients and probably other groups that are not usually included in clinical trials.
Clinical trial process from the formal point of view is very well established. What we need to do is to more focusing on relevant clinical changes related to the new drugs. So methodology needs to be improved to have real patient outcomes relevant for their disease, real differences set up between the new and the old drugs, and so trials with sample size that can have this kind of answers to the questions. So these are the most important things that need to be improved.